This is Dennis Green, and this is the KCCK Culture Crawl. My pleasure to welcome a couple of guests to KCCK today. It's a big music interview weekend on KCCK, as we'll have Amina Figueroa in studio a little bit later on today. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Lee Underwood to KCCK. Lee, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dennis.
And great to have you here. Jim Jacobmeyer is also here from the Artisan Sanctuary in Cedar Rapids. And Jim will talk a little bit later about the activities that you've brought Lee in for a workshop and a concert, which is tomorrow night. So Jim is nodding nicely. So say hi, Jim.
Good morning.
Yeah, Jim is actually here. And we'll get to specifics on what's going on at the Artisan Sanctuary in just a few minutes. But first off, Lee, as I said, welcome. Great to have you here. For those not familiar with Lee's career, Lee is a writer and a musician. Probably, I would definitely want to talk about your work as a writer with Downbeat and Rolling Stone. But in your biography, the top line is your work with the legendary singer-songwriter Tim Buckley.
Yes.
Tell me how you and Tim got hooked up.
Well, I met Tim in New York. I came out there to be a folk singer and an acoustic guitar player. He heard me play and said, "Hey, I've got a gig at the Night Owl here in the village. Need a guitar player. Would you like to play?" I said yes, because always I had wanted to play guitar since I used to listen to Gene Autry and Roy Rogers on the radio. So we got together. I really liked what he could do. Bob Dylan said he's probably the best singer of this generation, and I agree wholeheartedly. He was extraordinary. So he liked my playing, I liked his singing, and we teamed up with me being his guitar player. I was with him for 7 years. I toured and recorded on 7 of the 9 albums he recorded in the studio and appear on several of the posthumous recordings.
When did he pass away?
He passed away in 1975 at the age of 28.
Oh.
Boo-hoo. An accidental overdose of alcohol and heroin.
Oh, very similar, yeah, like the Graham Parsons story.
Yeah.
Passed away so young, and we never got to hear so much good music.
Yeah, well, that's true. But however, Tim, like I said, did 9 albums in the 9 years that he was performing. Also, he was not an addict, as some people say. He was on a clean system, coming back from Dallas, and a couple of weeks on the road with a totally clean system, and partied too hard. Had about 5 drinks and then snorted some heroin. Boom, did him in, very prematurely. But meanwhile, the legacy is extraordinary. He wrote Song to the Siren. Actually, Larry Beckett wrote the lyrics. Larry Beckett teamed with Buckley for many years, writing lyrics to many of Buckley's songs. So Song to the Siren has been a big hit. Then like an album, Happy Sad was a big hit. Goodbye in a Low was a big hit. Another one, Greetings from L.A., kind of a rock and roll thing. But Tim explored 5 genres altogether. He was extraordinary this way. He evolved from, say, folk music into folk rock, into jazz with Happy Sad. I don't know if you've got a copy of Happy Sad here in the studio, but you might want to listen to a cut or two. And then moved into the avant-garde with Star Sailor, which he called his masterpiece. And then from there moved into sort of a white funk groove. So he evolved. His evolution as an artist was just extraordinary.
Accomplished a heck of a lot in 28 years.
He sure did. He was intellectually a sort of vacuum cleaner. You could give him information about writers, about musicians. He would immediately incorporate it and transform it into his own music. So quite a guy. One of the most interesting, talented, intelligent people I've ever met.
And I guess then I don't really have to ask what led you to want to write a biography of him, because you just, in great detail, talked about what an interesting and multi-talented fellow that he was. And the biography, again, a biography written about somebody who had a fairly short life, has been very well received over the years and has won some awards. Mm-hmm. Blue Melody is what it's called. So tell me just a little bit about the process of writing that.
I carried this story around with me in my head for some 25 years. Then when I decided to sit down and actually write the story, because some other people were starting to become interested in writing the story, I said, hey, I don't want this thing to be pull the rug out from under me by other writers. So I sat down and wrote it in 3 months. I did have to look up some dates, but for the most part, it's entirely from memory. No matter how stoned I'd be on the road, my writer's mind was working full time, and I didn't even know it. So when it came time to write it, I wrote a very impassioned book, Blue Melody, Tim Buckley Remembered.
And this came out in 2002, was, as I said, very highly regarded. You also, over time, have branched out into writing poetry. And in fact, it's your poetry that you're going to be reading as a part of some of your activities at the Artisan Sanctuary
Well, I'll read some of Blue Melody, which I could do right here if you like, and some from my poetry book, Time Winds. So it'd be a combination of that. Plus, Jim has been kind enough to move in a piano, and so I'll play a couple of tunes on the piano as well.
So, Jim, tell us a little bit about the activities that are going to be going on. I know that there's a songwriting workshop that Lee and Cindy Dawson of the band Cindy and the Sins is going to be involved in, and then a concert that night. What led you to put this event on and also bring in these particular artists?
Well, we've wanted to do a songwriting workshop for some time, and Lee and I had been corresponding. I was impressed with his connection with Tim Buckley, who was one of my favorite singer-songwriters. And Lee sent me Blue Melody and his book of poetry, and also he's been recording CDs of his piano music as well. And so, through that correspondence, and I think, Lee, it's been, maybe 2 years since we first connected.
I'd say so, yeah. Yeah, at least.
And so we developed this long-distance relationship, and we were just really excited at the prospect of offering that to musicians here in Cedar Rapids.
Lee, what is different, and then I'm going to follow up and ask what's the same or similar between writing poetry and writing song lyrics? At first blush, it seems like those would be, very, very similar. But what makes each particular pursuit unique?
There's suddenly silence. For me, they're very much the same. I don't start off with a preconceived form, like a standard song form or a standard poetry form, such as a haiku, for example, or a sonnet. Standard forms are there for a reason, because they work and it makes it easier for people to compose. But it's to me, that's sort of like a crossword puzzle. You got a form, you fill it in with your stuff, and there comes out a product. I start with nothing, just a feeling. And that feeling evolves into a thought, and then that thought finds words. And then I work with the words to get a rhythm that's similar to water flowing or wind moving. It's a natural rhythm. Whatever rhymes there are in poetry are usually internal within the line, rather than at the end of every other line having a sort of what I call a cliche rhyme, because if all the rhymes have been gobbled up.
That's right. There are no new rhymes.
There are no new rhymes. But sometimes you come up with them. So, yeah, that's it. I start with just that feeling. It's a general, unfocused feeling, and it moves into a thought that becomes a little more focused into words. Then with poetry, it's not a matter of rewriting to me. It's like I sort of put it on my screen at home and come back to it each day and jiggle this word and cut that one and put a new one in and come back the next day. And this doesn't work. Kind of just mess with it until finally it just stops at what I think of as an interesting place. And that's it. So with prose, with Blue Melody, it came out as a flow. Like I said, I've carried this idea around for many years, 25 years. But then the editors came in and helped out with this sentence, that sentence, maybe adjusting this word or that. But for the most part, it came out whole and complete the way it was in a similar fashion to poetry.
Can you read something from Time Winds for us?
Sure, I'd love to.
Talking with Lee Underwood and Jim Jacobmeyer. Songwriting Workshop and a concert this weekend at the Artisan Sanctuary in Czech Village in Cedar Rapids.
Yeah.
So why don't you share a little
All right,
something with
here's
us.
a little short poem. Franz Liszt, great piano virtuoso, extravagant piano virtuoso in the early 19th century, contemporary of Chopin. He was kind of the rock and roll hero of his day. Long hair, skirts with those great baggy sleeves that Scaramouche used to wear. And lots of the groupies all over Europe. He had a good time. So this is a short poem that kind of captures my love of his music. It's called For Franz Liszt, Extravagant Piano Virtuoso. All that fancy, flamboyant, fire, fun, fury, and sassy flim-flam fandango, flash dash, tickles my whimsy, brights my blue-eyed giddy lights, sings my blood and skin heat, sweet song racing. Get 'em, Franz. My God, you were a beauty.
Thank you. Excellent. Well done. Lee Underwood, and something from his collection of poems called Time Winds. Jim, this is the If You Want to Go part of the interview. So if people haven't heard about this, about what's going on this weekend with the workshop and the concert, I assume you still have some space?
Yes. Tomorrow the workshop begins at 10 o'clock, and it will last until 4. And it is a workshop with Lee and also Cindy Dawson and Henry Sees, which are the Sins. And we'd like to encourage people to come down and be involved with the workshop. We do still have space in the workshop. And it's an opportunity really to meet other area artists, authors, musicians, and we're going to bring that all together in a very unique, I think, workshop situation. And with both Cindy and Lee, we have this opportunity, which is very rare, I think, bringing two well-known artists from both coasts to Cedar Rapids.
And Cindy's a rock and roller too.
Yes.
So even if you're not if you don't compose in the singer-songwriter oeuvre, that would be an opportunity to get a little exposure to different kinds of music too.
Oh, the diversity will be wonderful. We'll have people there that are of the folk genre, rock and roll, punk. Cindy, I think, could be categorized as a punk rocker.
I'd say so, kind of a garage punk rock band. Mm-hmm. I call her the magnificent Cindy Dawson. Really, she's got brains, she's got beauty, she can sing. Henry Size is a terrific guitar player, comes up with wonderful rock and roll riffs, and guides the music magnificently, just like Cindy sings it magnificently. I think Cindy will be reading her poetry with Henry backing her on guitar. So it's kind of a guitar poetry thing.
And then the concert this is a really intimate concert for anyone who hasn't been in your space. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful, intimate space, but only 50 tickets available.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock tomorrow night. And also it's a goodwill donation situation. So, if you're concerned about admission prices, we're just looking for a donation at the door. So
if you're interested in songwriting of any flavor, or maybe a child or a grandchild might be interested too, this would be a great opportunity to learn from the best. Lee, thank you so much for being here. It's a real honor and a pleasure to get to talk to you a little bit, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with aspiring songwriters here in Eastern Iowa, and I wish you both a lot of success with this event.
Thank you very much. Dennis.
Again, and the website is, Jim?
Yes, it's www.artisansanctuary.org.
And you can get more information there, or just stop by tomorrow anytime during the day, and you can check out some of the activities. Gentlemen, thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.